Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Rational Trader Podcast. GD here with my co-host Louis Navalier. Louis, it's another Friday and another record high for the markets, but we were speaking offline that beneath the surface, there's some really interesting narratives. And for today's podcast, I want to explore your thoughts on all of those items, starting with the economic data or maybe the lack thereof, I guess, with the Labor Department and the government shutdown. We're not getting the jobs numbers. Is that a big deal or not?
I don't think it's a big deal because we have the Conference Board Consumer Confidence, which dropped. We have ISM Manufacturing and Service Sector Surveys, which manufacturing is improving, but it's still under 50, but the service plummeted. So that's a bad sign. And then we have the ADP report. Now, what was interesting about ADP is not only was it negative, but they revised the previous month lower to a negative after reporting 54,000. So that was August. And then June was negative. So three of the last 4 months have been job losses according to ADP, and they do the payroll processing. So again, kudos to Chris Waller on the Fed because he foresaw all this before the downward labor market revisions.
Hmm.
But yeah, we're not going to have any economic data. We're not going to have CPI. We're not going to have retail sales. We're not going to have payroll. And the longer this lasts, the more messed up it's going to be. Now, the guy that Trump picked to run the Labor Department has pulled his nomination. So, and there's a lot of job openings in middle management there too. So, I'm very worried. I'm relieved not to have the government data. I think it's noisy. It's got seasonal adjustments. And so let's just use the private economists for now.
It's fascinating, Louis, that issue has been percolating as far as the reliability of the data for some time now, especially with those giant revisions that are highly suspect and potentially politically motivated. Um, the markets function because of reliable data and perfect information. So it's counterintuitive to me that you introduce imperfect information into the system, and the market seems to be celebrating that and just keeps going higher and higher.
Well, I would respectfully argue that the Fed is grossly misled. Okay, even though they got smart people in the Fed like Christopher Waller. Um,
No
you know,
argument from me on that.
I get Yardeni, I get Ian Shepperson, private economists. They've never had the tariff concerns that Jerome Powell had, and and the CPI is only 14% related to tariffs. So, there's been a false narrative, really more of a political narrative. Okay. But it's time to cut rates. Now, on the private credit side, we have the subprime auto outfit in Texas go for liquidation. We have an equipment leasing company in Utah, $12 billion company now, that failed. And so there's starting to be some private credit issues. Um, the Financial Times is British, and they love to pick on America and point out how flawed we are. And they've got, a very famous short seller now warning that the world may end in America, Jim Chanos. So uh, these are just reasons the Fed needs to cut. But we had a dramatic decline in Treasury yields this week. So everybody's expecting at least two more Fed rate cuts this year.
It amazes me, this idea of and it's perverse, the bad news is good news, because a lot, just listening to you, right? If I'm an investor hearing you speak, I would think the world's ending, but where's GDP now at? Dang near at 4%.
Yeah, 3.8%. And that's with a bad housing market. It's a very interesting economy. This government shutdown is interesting too because essentially the minority leadership in Congress, both of which live in New York City, wanted them to restore the healthcare benefits to illegals as well as low-income people. And when Congress passes something, they don't go back and redo it. So that this is all political, and Trump's just piling on. In New York City, there's he cut the funding for a subway extension and cleaning up the Hudson Tunnel, which got flooded. I think during Sandy, and they've been cleaning it ever since. And that's right below my daughter's apartment. So we hear all the banging all the time there.
Yeah, she was complaining about the jackhammers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and she's 42 floors up. And furthermore, he just got to funding in Chicago. So they've cut a lot of green funding. So we'll see. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. Uh, and, Pete Hegseth is, of course, is going to make all the generals do calisthenics and push-ups and make sure they're in shape. And as I'm talking to you now, Trump just hit another drug boat in Venezuela. I think that's the fourth one. So we'll see if we invade Venezuela. That's all over the news that we might go in and take out the drug gangs. So it's getting to be very, very interesting environment. But fortunately, uh, we have record corporate profits. There's an amount of foreign money pouring in America is very strong. So I feel pretty good right now. I'm
Tell me if you agree with this concept that I'm going to throw out at you. It seems to me in the years that I've been following markets that it's not too dissimilar to the business cycle in general. So that and the markets are a forward-looking entity. So as the business cycle plays out, a market will anticipate a slowdown of some sort and price in lower earnings or lower earnings growth into that sort of environment, and the market will go down. When the Federal Reserve steps in and starts cutting rates, or the data truly becomes poor, then the market celebrates again being a forward looking past the recession and the green shoots that arise after that.
Yeah, well, the truth of the matter is the longer you look, the fuzzier it gets. So we can't really see more than 6 to 9 months out. Okay.
Mhm.
But it does look good. Uh, it the main thing is the whole world has stopped growing because they're losing households. It's hard to grow when your population's shrinking, and that's Asia and Northern Europe.
Yes.
So Portugal and Spain, I think, are growing from immigration, but the rest of Europe is shrinking. And so you can have productivity gains, boost your GDP. But I do think other than that, it's really hard. Now in America, we have household formation. The South, the Mountain West are pro-family. Those are fast-growing areas in America. We do assimilate our immigrants. Of course, Trump wants them to be legal. So we'll see. With all the deportations going on, there might be some disruptions. But again, as long as you go the legal channel, that's fine. And you can see what he did when he raided the LG battery plant in Georgia. LG has 4 battery plants in America. Okay.
Oh,
And he
wow.
raised one of them. And apparently they weren't on green cards. They were on these temporary work visas that expired. So, but anyway, they'll have to do their paperwork right and cross their I's and dot their T's and uh, uh, cross their T's and dot their
Yep.
I's.
Reverse that. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, dyslexia is here. But it's just the holidays are coming. It's a happy time of year. It's time to celebrate. The U.S. is mostly a service economy, so whatever manufacturing modes we have are limited, but if we need to get the housing market fixed because a lot of durable good orders come from there. Meantime, Boeing orders went up well, military orders are 50%. Transportation orders went up 7.9 due to some robust orders of Boeing. So
One common theme you and I have discussed since starting this podcast, Louis, is this concept of reversion to the mean, and that arising from the manipulations of the large hedge funds like Citadel.
Citadel, James Street. There were some good articles on the James Street guy. He's got a ponytail and long hair, and no one recognizes him, and he's kind of like a Burning Man kind of guy.
Yeah.
I did not see him at Burning Man. I didn't go, but they all came through Reno. Um, but he's now passing Citadel, and he's now being recognized because he's making a lot of money, and a lot of it's on the options and the spreads. And if you look at the option writing nowadays, it's at a record level
It,
because people can write a
does
call
it
for a
seem to
huge
you though,
premium.
does it seem to you in the current environment, would you, at least my observation in the last week or two, and maybe even the last month or two, that the influence of those folks has dropped significantly. Is there something changing beneath the surface there in regards to the influence that those folks have, maybe being replaced by, the army of individual investors that love to buy stocks on their little handheld device for Robinhood?
Yeah, you got the mean stuff. I actually got all the picks from my caddy, and he had quantum computing stocks,
Cannabis.
fission reactors, no, mining for bitcoins. He did have Robinhood, one of my stocks. But it's pretty out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Clearly, he's ignoring the fundamentals, and um, so. Um, yeah, it's there is this a meme crowd out there, and I think the meme crowd is getting bigger and invading more areas. But in the end, it's still AI appliers, data centers. I mean, that's where all our growth is. When I did my a large
Well,
cap letter, I only found
when
two
when
stocks
when
to
the
buy on
when
data
those
center.
when those institutions hammer a particular stock in a reversion to the mean kind of way, using that as their guide, um, the macro can, they it all starts with the macro. And again, just stepping back and looking at the macro today, combined with the absence of data because of the government shutdown, and my instinct would tell me that the computers would be very aggressively bearish in those conditions, at least the way I understand the computers
I,
to.
I just think they're the dog chasing its tail.
I think their
Riding the
influence is waning. That's what I'm trying to drive at here.
maybe on some of the meme stocks and stuff, or the crypto, the quantum computing types things. But
I mean,
no,
look, you had the government shutdown, right? And it hit at midnight, okay? And the you know how the news headline algorithms work, right? And they came in just as you would expect. They hammered the futures down 50 bips. I mean, that now is a big deal, down 50 bips.
so
And that evaporated by the time the market closed that day.
yeah, so Bespoke documented the last six shutdowns in the past a week, past month, past 3 months, past 6 months. Next year, the market's always higher on a median basis. So it is what it is. It's just a political show. That's what it's all about.
Well, on both sides. I mean, to me, I've been looking at this as this is a, you know, Trump doesn't have many opportunities for a beatdown like this, and he just loves the beatdown. And this is
No, he's having a ball.
he is having a ball with this.
But the head of OMB's a very serious guy, um, probably more extreme than Trump. And they're not kidding when they say they're going to have layoffs and furloughs. This is their chance to do what was Elon was doing with Doge. So there may
Right,
be
right.
some very serious cuts underway.
Is that Voight,
Yeah,
Stephen Voight or
yeah,
Vogt
yeah,
or however you pronounce
yeah.
his
I
name?
wouldn't mess with this guy.
Yeah, he actually seems like I mean, it is the Halloween season, I guess. He kind
Yeah,
of
but
has
he's
a
always
Michael
been behind the
Myers.
scenes. Yeah. Oh, you know, it's but the politics is ridiculous. I was listening to the mayor of LA saying that ICE is hunting Hispanics and shooting them, and
Well,
that's just
that's
politics.
just silly.
So here's a lady who can't even get water in the reservoir a year after the fire, uh, can't bury the power lines, nothing's happening, total incompetence. Um, it's interesting how California works is when you get your inspectors for homes and things, they often change them up so that they'll have a new inspector invent new crap for you to do that the old
Right.
one didn't mention. So the institutional stuff is real and it's pretty bizarre.
As you know, I'm in New York City visiting a friend, and I haven't been in the city in quite some time. And it's fascinating how energized the city is with the redevelopments that have occurred in the last 15
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sure. South of Manhattan, I think is where you are, and I mean, it's lower Manhattan, and then my daughter's up the street in Hudson Yards, and there's a lot.
Apparently, this was a red light district, 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So there's been a lot of interesting things going on, but it's at least there's an energy to New York. But you're old now.
I
You're
didn't realize, did you know, I'm sure you know this, but just out walking around the city with my friend, he was sharing with me, he's a, manufacturing engineer type that likes
Mhm.
to buy and sell little businesses in that space. And so one of his fascinations now are scaffolding companies, the companies that do scaffolding. And apparently there's a regulation now that says all these brick buildings have to be inspected maybe like once a year or once every other year because bricks were falling and injuring people on the sidewalks. And so if you walk around the city, you'll see the impact of that. There are these scaffoldings up covering the entire building so they can go inspect the bricks and fix whatever bricks that might be loose or what have you. And I didn't know how to feel about that, right? Because on one hand, I was insulted that there was a law in the books that said I have to inspect my building because bricks are falling. But I suppose if it wasn't the government telling him to do it, it'd be the insurance companies because that seems like a big liability.
Yeah, we have the same thing in Florida, because of that condo that crashed. They're forced to inspect all the condos. There's assessments. But actually, the engineer working on our house is a condo inspector. It's the
Is that
same thing.
right?
It's the steel the steel sticking out. I mean, is it rusting inside? And you got to clean it up, waterproof it, and maybe replace some steel.
He took me down to one the Liberty Tower and was
Mhm.
talking about the engineering now behind that tower and how the redundancies and there's no way a 9/11 could bring down that new tower, which I thought was
Well, let's
interesting.
hope they don't test that. Okay.
Well, we don't even want to get to that point, but I guess it's just nice to know the engineering advancements, right? That you
Yeah.
know learn from
Well,
the
you can get a condo at a discount in San Francisco because they have a building that's tilting.
Oh, really?
Mhm. The it's interesting. When I worked in San Francisco, I was up high on California Street, 600 block, and they're building there, and then they find a ship, and it's like I guess it was a cliff, and then all that was fill, and
Oh,
uh, I because it was they were digging out the foundation for a building. I remember they smashed the ship. They shut the site down for a while to inspect it, but in the end, they had to smash it to put the building in. And this is in California, they could
hmm.
shut it down forever. But we were a couple hundred feet up from the bay, so they must have been a cliff when back when they had the ships and all that's fill now. And one of those buildings is listing because what they do is when they put a building, especially an earthquake zone, they need to whatever the building weighs, they got to
Yeah.
dig out that amount of dirt. You know what I mean? And we're not always blessed to have the rock that New York has, which is why you can set those buildings in that. But yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, it's so vibrant here. I'm just really impressed and amazed,
Also expensive.
and I don't quite understand how the folks that live here, do it. But boy, my buddy took me to the Yankee game last night, and you know, taking the trains and how efficient. The city can be with whatever it is, 10 million people in a very densely populated space and how it all functions. It kind of boggles my mind. But,
Yep, yep, yep.
well,
The other thing that happened this week is uh, Bespoke did a report on what worked in September, and believe it or not, it was predominantly the the big stocks. So the big got bigger, the strong got stronger.
I was going to ask you, how are you feeling about this rally and how is it impacting your portfolios and
It's
what
still
stocks you
AI.
recommend?
It's still AI. I've got 9 gold stocks. Um, it's a very narrow market still. And also, I guess the most encouraging thing I got this week was from Bloomberg. They have a service called Green Daily, and Bloomberg wrote about a positive article on natural gas and why we need more natural gas turbines to fuel the data center demand. Now, just remember, a year ago there was a federal ban on drilling for natural gas on federal land. That was a problem because it capped the wells and methane was leaking.
Yep.
Biden had stopped the expansion of LNG, and 16 states sued, and the Biden administration was losing, but they're still appealing. So that was screwing up the LNG industry. And then you could build a new natural gas plant, but you had to quote unquote sequester the carbon by 2032. So now all those rules are off. They're back drilling on federal land, LNG is booming, and you don't have to sequester the carbon. So, I'm from Berkeley and I'm used to all environmental people.
Hmm.
And for Bloomberg to do a 180 and go from whatever they were doing to what they're doing now, and embracing it is very refreshing. Okay. And I
Yeah.
think what happened is a lot of the green movement was just ways to enrich their friends.
Oh, sure.
Stacey Abrams got the $2 billion grant to, upgrade appliances. And to her credit, she did 89 homes, but 89 homes for 2 billion seems a little not very productive. And
Well, I remember back in the 90s, watching some of these windmill companies, the banking community, investment banking community that helped them raise capital, they're just foaming at the mouth because they recognize that this was a story that they could foist upon the governmental entities and with certainty get a sale out of it. And out of that, then Well, the under the table dealing, right, with the to get the regulatory approvals and what have you, and send me warrants here, send me shares there, and and it's pathetic. I mean, it had nothing to do with green energy.
Yeah, so under the Biden administration, they spent $4.5 billion to bring high-speed internet to rural America, and they never laid any fiber. All they did is file for permits. So that's 4.5 billion in bureaucracy and permits with no work being done.
With nothing to show for it.
Correct. And of course now they got to compete with Starlink. And
Yes.
but the other example is high-speed rail in California. They use eminent domain to make farmers tear up their fields for the railroads, and the farmers have done that, and then they haven't been paid. Some haven't been paid yet.
Yeah.
And and the first place is called Victorville, in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of cows. And no one wants to go to Victorville. Okay. Okay. But it's it just doesn't get done. And that's my comment. So it's
Sure. Well,
you know what?
it's just it's to your point, it's political, and they're helping their friends, and
Correct.
it's now that, to your point, it's refreshing what's going on today, and that is, you know what, that's good for the markets.
Well, I'm in Reno, so we probably should remind everybody what really goes on. So Reno is a suburb of Northern Cal. And I live high in the hills, and with the bear and the deer. God, there were several deer today. I tried not to hit them. They were running down the road. These big deer too. I got a bear because I got fruit trees.
Oh, sure.
But I don't see my neighbors because they live in California. And you see people turn on the lights in the holidays. I guess they just come check out the house. So Californians will buy a home in Reno. They'll change all their bank accounts to Reno, put their money at Schwab. The Schwab office in Reno is the largest in the world. And and then they go back to California. And what fueled the solar boom in California was tax evasion, because Enphase Energy had a very good system with power walls and stuff where you could set it to make it look like you weren't there when you were there.
Oh,
And this is what makes America great. Our states compete with each other. But
yes.
obviously Reno doesn't have the same weather that California has because it's on the backside of the Sierra and it gets colder and drier and more extreme weather. And so for the people that like the fog and the air conditioning or whatever, the weather gets better as you get close to the coast. They can still live there, and then they don't pay taxes if they spend a lot of money on a fancy solar system with power walls. So that's obviously wasn't the intent of the solar stuff, but that's what happened in real life.
Let's talk about some individual stocks, Louis. And I'm just looking here on my screen, and one in particular, we did a couple Two Sigma videos regarding this particular name, but as this everything AI and crypto rally and large cap rally keeps powering forward. There's a name like Sprouts Farmer Market that is really getting not just left behind, but it's being punished for reasons I can't figure out.
Well, it's just not in fashion. Uh, but basically, yeah, food stocks are suffering. Yeah.
Is that because of their defensive nature and everything's just risk on right now?
They're out of fashion. I
I mean,
mean,
it seems to me to be an ideal reversion of the mean setup, getting back to that concept, right?
we have the same thing with fresh Del Monte produce, although it's up 2% today.
And the ticker on that one is FDM,
DP, FDP.
FDP. Yep. And by the way, Sprouts is SFM for those interested.
But because Sprouts has good forecast sales and earnings, I'll hold it through earnings season, so I have staying power. So, but yeah, if a stock doesn't have very good earnings, it could be a problem. Okay.
Well, and what I like about Sprouts is its growth prospects. I mean, they're
Mhm.
not in every market, and they have some competitive advantages that make them, could make them very competitive as they do enter other markets, laying the foundation for the kind of growth that should be attracting more and more investors.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they're just not in fashion right now. So let's see if the earnings attracts any attention.
As I was talking about Sprouts, it reminded, part of this is just from experience, right? And, helping my mom out in Tucson, uh, you know, I'm exposed to places like Sprouts that they don't operate in my home community. Another name like that is Dutch Brothers. And I love that ticker is BROS.
Mhm.
I don't know if you follow Dutch or not, but I am fascinated by this name.
That's a coffee shop, right?
Yep, yeah.
Yeah, and Starbucks is closing. So yeah, yeah.
Their model is a drive-up coffee chain, so their footprint is a lot smaller than a Starbucks.
Hmm.
Although last night, not to digress, but I went in for the first time. I walked through I don't know what they call it. It's a Starbucks, for lack of a better word, superstore here in Manhattan. I don't know if you've been to it,
No.
but it has a full bar and a big coffee roasting section. The place was jam packed, but my comment was, "Man, that footprint's awfully large, and here in Manhattan, that's got to be super expensive." But Dutch Brothers has a small footprint. They bring in these college kids to work there. It's a vibrant, it's kind of a fun, it makes me feel young going through the line. They're playing the music, and it's a bright sunny day, and here's your coffee to start your day, and love the place. And their stock seems to be doing really well as well, and has some good fundamentals behind it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um, Small caps, that had been doing well are not doing so well in September, Louis. Do you think with the Russell realignment that's coming up here in October, correct?
Actually, that I was wrong on that. They're gonna have two realignments next year. I thought they were gonna do two this year. So
Oh,
we're not gonna have that. But we are entering the time of year where it's very, very good for small caps. There's we should have an early January effect, and then
and
uh,
by the way, let's explain that seasonality story to folks because I think it's one of the few that's very, very reliable. It's also a story that's getting pushed forward quite a bit, meaning you're seeing the January effect happen in November and December, not in January.
yeah, I know that. But that's always been the case. We always have an early January effect.
The
So
the quote unquote early January effect. Well, Louis, any other thoughts or comments before we sign off? I've equated the analogy I'm using for the current market is, I and again, maybe I'm just old, but I can't believe the market in in a state of flying blind, essentially, can have confidence to put risk on. And so the analogy I've been using is the parents are away from the house and the kids are throwing a party.
hmm
What I'm wondering is, are the police going to be called
yeah, yeah, yeah.
at some point, right? This has got to,
That's why you got the British media, which are incredibly negative people. Okay.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's cloudy there all the time.
well, they got Jim Chanos talking about the end of the world. Okay. But the Brits have always predicted the end of the world for America. They can't believe when their colonies is doing better than them.
They've been jealous ever since 1776, huh?
So, well, they have issues in Britain. One of my gals works over there, and we sent her the article about from the NHS, the National Health Service, about the health benefits of marrying your first cousin. And she said that's fake news. And I fired off like five articles saying the same thing from the Telegraph and all that stuff. And so they have this minority in Britain who does do that. And it's obviously infiltrating all their institutions.
Wow.
And I think they've since pulled it, okay?
Okay.
Because if you can marry your first cousin, but you might wonder why the kids came out funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds a little too close to home for me.
No, I throw it back at the Brits too. I'm not anti-British, but there is this class of civilization going on over in Europe, and it's kind of sad.
Louis, as we're recording, I'm watching the Dow break through 47,000, and now we step back a few points, but first time in history for 47,000.
Yep, yep. All right. Well, enjoy the ride. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Louis, as always, for your thoughts and comments. This wraps up another episode of the Rational Trader Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Louis and I will be back next week for another episode. Take care. Good luck with all your investing and trading, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.